Alright, welcome everyone. My name is K. Michael Russell. I am a comic book colorist, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So this video today, I'm going to be answering a lot of the frequently asked questions that pop up in the comments here on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. So I can have one place and just send all the people that asked those questions to this video. And I'll try to timestamp it and everything so it's easy to find the answers that way. So I'm just going to get started. What does the K stand for? So in my name, I go by K. Michael Russell because my first name is Kurt, and most people in the world, in the real world, know me as Kurt, which means that my name is Kurt Russell, which, if you don't know, is a famous, really famous actor. And it's impossible to search for Kurt Russell and find me. It's sort of a stage name, pen name, whatever you want to call it. The K stands for Kurt, and yes, I've probably heard whatever Goldie Hawn joke that you're thinking of. So, what kind of computer do I use? It's a, my main computer it's a desktop computer I built. It's not a brand name computer. It's Intel i7, 32 gigs of RAM, SSD, GTX 1070 if you care about all that stuff. It's probably overkill. It is overkill for coloring. You don't necessarily have to have that sort of power, speed, or whatever, but I wanted overkill, so that's what I have. I also have a Wacom like Mobile Studio Pro that it's a computer in and of itself. I've got the i5 model, the 256 gig model, so those are the two main systems I use. What is the best tablet for beginners? Wacom, again, just buy a Wacom tablet. It doesn't really matter which one. Whatever you can afford, 50, 75 bucks used on eBay, like, just get a Wacom. Like, I've tried lots of the Chinese alternatives, knockoffs and all that. It always end up coming back to the old standby, so honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm doing a lot of videos these days on this is a Wacom, I don't even know, like Art or something. Like, it's like $150 or something. I use that a lot of times if I don't want to use the Cintiq, so it doesn't matter. Most of the videos on this channel were made on an Intuos 2 that just died. I did a video about that a couple of months ago. What software are you using? I get this question a lot. It is always Photoshop, always, and never anything else. As a follow-up to that, I get asked, like, can I do this on an iPad? Can I do this on different computers? Yes, you can. I don't recommend using iPads, though. Usually there's limitations with the number of layers or the resolution or something, and maybe the new iPad Pro has changed some of that, but I'm not a big fan. Everything I know how to do is in Photoshop, but you can use whatever you want. It's just what I prefer. I've used it for years and years, and I don't want to learn anything else. There are other products out there, but Photoshop is pretty much the standard. Anime, what's it called? Manga Studio, it used to be. I think Clip Studio, it's called now, is very popular, but I know nothing about it, so. As a follow-up to that, will I do a tutorial on XYZ program? Probably not. I just don't know anything about them. I use Photoshop. Version probably doesn't matter either, but I use version CC. It's 10 bucks a month. It's hard to beat. Any version will work, though, honestly. Where do I get my brushes? So I've got a lot of brushes that I made. I've got a lot of brushes I've downloaded from others. Most of what I'm using is just a soft round brush a lot of the times. If you see me using a fancy looking natural media brush, it is probably a Kyle Webster brush. He does brushes for Photoshop that are unbelievable, and I've got links to his mega pack of brushes, and pretty much every video you'll see a link to that. I also have a full set of brushes that I include in my coloring course, which you guys hear me talk about at the end of every video. So I've got a pack of brushes in there as well, along with a bunch of actions and stuff that you see me do that's automated, creating holds, like color holds, and creating rendering layers and different. If you see me do something and it happens automatically, that's probably an action, and those are also included in my course. Will you teach me penciling or inking or lettering or any other part of the process? I appreciate, I've got lots of comments that People have said they like my color tutorials. Will I teach them how to ink or something else? No, I will not, unfortunately. I'm not an expert in those areas at all. I do draw. I like to draw. I'm just not, it's not what I feel comfortable teaching though. So maybe one day. I do have an idea of doing like a cartooning type course, just character design and things like that. I think would be fun, but I don't have time to make it right now. So how do I change my brush size? So this is a pretty common question here, and I'm going to use this weird egg shape in a second. So this is a little bit like, what's the old saying about like rubbing your stomach and patting your head, or the opposite, and it's hard to do. It takes a little practice, but to change my brush size, with the brush floating above the tablet but not touching, okay, you hold Alt and then hold down the right click button on the pen, okay, and move it left and right to change the size, move it up and down to change the hardness, which I don't really do very often, but that's it. I've had several people tell me their Photoshop doesn't do this, so I don't know if some of the old versions don't do this, but I know that like C5, C6, I think, maybe it was started with C6, I don't know, but again, just with the pen's not touching, that's important, it's not touching, it's floating above the tablet. Hold down Alt, it's going to change to the color picker, and still, without touching the tablet, hold down the right trigger button, which is what I've got mine set to, and then shift it left and right. So all of this is happening without me actually touching the tablet. If you touch the tablet, it color picks, and then that's a different thing when you hold down Alt. So hold Alt, hold the right trigger button, drag it back and forth. There's lots of ways to change brush sizes. People use brackets and different things. To me, this is by far the easiest, fastest way to do it. How do I get a critique? So I do critique videos irregularly, every couple of months. The majority of those come from students in my course. If you, and I always ask permission, but every piece that gets posted in there, I do a critique on. Sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's text or whatever, but everything that gets posted there gets a critique. Now, as far as doing critiques on YouTube, it's going to be harder to, honestly, there are a lot of people try to send me stuff, and it not only has to be, you know, obviously an interesting piece or something, but it needs to be something that I can use to teach something, you know. So I'm trying to, if I get a piece and I'm like, oh, this would be a great example of XYZ concept or whatever, then I'm more likely to pick it. But that's very random, and it's hard to predict. So the only way to guarantee you get a critique is either to, I've got a reward level on my Patreon, which you can get critiques, and then in my course, that's the most cost effective. It's to sign up for the course, and all the work that gets posted in there gets a critique. And if you like, and I think it would be a good example, I'll put it on YouTube also. But that's how I do critiques on people. Do I stream? Rarely. I wish I could stream more often. The vast majority of the time, I am working on something that I can't show. Like right now, my whiteboard, I am working on 3 different projects, and none of them I can show you. One hasn't even been announced yet, so that's why I don't stream as often as I would like. If I come across something that I can show, that I can do, then I will definitely stream. But when I do, it's usually on Twitch. I like their system better than YouTube when it comes to that. One of my favorite questions, do I play drums? That is a drum set. I do play them, so yes. I play drums, guitar, and I've sang before. I guess you could say I'm a singer-songwriter, but that was a long time ago. I used to do the whole acoustic singer-songwriter coffee shop guy thing when I was in college. That was 18, 19 years ago. Wow. Getting old. How do I do that thing with the bucket where I stay in the lines is what I'm going to call this. So I get this question in some form all the time, primarily because the first video on my page, I do this trick, and I don't know if maybe I didn't explain it well enough. So let me show you guys how this works. All right, so I've got this shape. These are just flat colors. There's nothing fancy going on here. It's just, the background is gray and you've got this yellow and blue. So with the bucket tool selected, okay, and if you'll look up here, all of these boxes are unchecked. Anti-alias, contiguous, is that how you say that? All layers. All of these things are unchecked, okay? That's important. The tolerance is 0, the mode and opacity doesn't really matter, but I keep it at 100% almost all the time. So those things are unchecked, that's it. That's the only thing you have to do to make this work. So I'm going to show you what they're talking about. So I'm going to get a really different color, like red or something. So if I make a selection around these 3 colors here, and I switch to the bucket tool, if these things are unchecked, I can hit one of those areas and it will only fill that area. Okay. Now if you turn, is it contiguous? Nope, it's one of these. Wait, uncheck all of those. I don't even know how people are not doing this when they do it. Because even checked, unchecked, it doesn't even make any difference. That's what I always thought it was. Anyway, I don't know under what circumstance this fills the entire area. Now, if I was on a different layer on top, now that would, you know, do all of that. But if I choose all layers, then it... now I'm gonna layer on top of this right now, so that's why it's filling it that way. But if I go back to my main layer and fill, you can see it's only doing those different areas. That's how that works. What is the best place to learn how to become a colorist? Obviously, I'm biased. I think my YouTube channel is good, and also my coloring course. Obviously, it's 10 hours of tutorials. It covers the entire process, start to finish. Setting up Photoshop, brushes, actions, how even the workspace. I go through all of that. It's step by step, every single part of the process, from flatting and rendering and color theory and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I would recommend, signing up for that. If you want to just get it all in one place, I mean, YouTube's good, but it's a little scattered, of course. YouTube videos, they're kind of all over the place, unfortunately. And it's, you know, you take what you learn in one lesson and you bring it into the next one, and you take both of those things you learn and you pull it in the next one. So it's all laid out very smoothly from one step to the next. Go check the reviews. You don't have to take my word for it. There's tons of reviews on there. How do I find a coloring job? There's not a correct answer for this, obviously. If you're just getting started, I would recommend trying to find your way into like anthologies, doing little shorts and pitches and different things. There's lots of you know, forums on the internet and Reddit and Facebook groups, and that's how I met almost all of the major connections that I made early on, was just in Facebook groups with other people that are in the same spot you are. You know, if you're a writer, you know, Jim Lee's not going to draw your book, you know, not your first one anyway. Or if you're an artist, you know, Brian Michael Bendis is probably not going to work with you if you've never drawn a comic before. So I'm not saying don't aim high for, you know, have some lofty goals. That's fine. But find someone, I like to say, like in your graduating class, okay? Like if you're new, find a new writer. If you've got a couple years experience, you know, you're probably that's gonna, you know, grow together, basically. Long and short of it is, I would say start small. Don't make your first project a 150-page graphic novel, making peanuts or nothing. You're never gonna finish it. That's not what I would recommend to start. Start small, build your way up. It worked for me. I can't guarantee it worked for everybody. Comics is a very small industry, so as far as it feels like everybody knows everybody, and in a lot of cases they do, and so that's a good thing, because if you're good, people are going to tell people that you're good, and it has a lot to do with obviously the networking and the people you meet and who you know, and those kind of things make sense. But you still have to have the talent. You still have to be good enough, you know. So, all right, and probably the most controversial question, or some people would find this to be controversial, is how much do colorists make? That varies wildly, okay? So I can tell you from my experience and just from talking to other colorists, now I don't know everybody's rates everywhere because I haven't worked for everybody. I can tell you that on the low side, from publishers that you've heard of. I'll put it that way. Not necessarily a major publisher, but not the smallest either. You know, typically if it's a publisher that's on the shelf in a comic shop and they're doing books you've heard of, the lowest that I've probably heard is about $25 or $30 a page. Now that's low, okay, from a professional company, you know, from a minor major publisher, whatever you want to call it. That's about the lowest that I've seen, and most pro colorists that I know don't want to work at those rates. But I'll throw it out there. I'm not going to say who that is, but if you've seen any of the surveys done the last couple of years, it's not that hard to figure out who I'm talking about. On the high end, a lot of it depends on experience, obviously. I would say the median, and this is just based on my experience and from the people that I've talked to about this, I would say 50 to 75 is probably sort of mid-range. 75 is probably getting toward the high side. But 50 to 75 a page is, you know, if you've been around a little while, you've got a couple of projects under your belt, that's pretty reasonable. I know 50 is a minimum for several pro colorist friends that I have. And then on the high side, 75 plus, 100 plus. The highest I've personally heard of was about 135 a page. But that was on a major best-selling, like, top 3 comic book. So yeah, you're not going to start off making that. I don't make that very often. But that's roughly where I start. And as far as overall, of course, it depends on how much work you can do and how many projects you want to take, and you know, getting fast enough to make it make sense financially takes some time usually. So especially at the beginning when the rates are low. So that's a very broad answer on purpose. Basically, you can make anywhere from $25 to $150 a page depending on the publisher and how much experience you have and all that wonderful stuff. So it's a broad answer because it's broad. So I think that wraps it up. I think I've answered all the things that I get a lot of questions about. If you have questions that I missed, put them in the comments and I will address those in another video, possibly in the future. So as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to check the description for all the links and all the crap I told you about. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Thumbs up it, you know, all that stuff I ask you guys to do. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.